You don't belong this family.
This marriage is over. You're not part of this future.
You've already made your choice. This situation needs to be corrected.
What is happening?
This is not what we agreed on.
The first glass hit Nathan Ashford before he could even finish his sentence. Red wine splashed across his collar as laughter spread through the Grand Windsor ballroom, phones already raised to record. Victoria Holloway didn't hesitate. She poured a second glass over his shoulder while her mother called him a man who never belonged in a room like this. No one knew the truth. No one knew the quiet husband they mocked had the power to shut the entire night down. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 6 years earlier, none of this felt possible. Nathan had stood near the back of the Grand Windsor ballroom, the same room that now echoed with laughter, and watched his wife command the stage. Victoria looked exactly like the version of herself she had always wanted to become. Confident, sharp, untouchable. Her silver dress caught the light from the chandeliers, and every time she turned, cameras followed. She was the center of the room, and Nathan was not. He had arrived through the general entrance unnoticed. No assistant checked his name, no one offered him a drink. A few guests glanced at him, then looked away, already deciding he didn't matter. That had been happening more often lately. It hadn't always been like this. When they first met, Victoria liked that he didn't belong to that world. She liked that he worked with his hands, that his clothes sometimes carried the faint trace of real work. She said it made him different. Back then, different meant real. Now different meant embarrassing. Nathan adjusted his jacket slightly. It was simple, well-tailored, but deliberately understated. Nothing about him suggested wealth. Nothing about him suggested power. That had always been the point. He had spent years building a life that didn't reflect where he came from, not because he couldn't show it, but because he wanted to know who would stay when there was nothing to gain. Victoria had stayed, at least he thought she had. Across the room, she laughed at something Logan Mercer said. Logan stood too close to her. Close enough that it wasn't accidental. Close enough that anyone watching would understand. Nathan watched the way Logan leaned in, the way his voice dropped just slightly, or the way Victoria didn't move away. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't meant to be. Logan had entered their lives as a consultant. That was the official explanation. He was supposed to help Sterling Premier Events expand into larger institutional contracts. Or what he actually did was far more precise. He studied people. He learned what they wanted, and then he told them exactly what they needed to hear. With Victoria, it had been simple. He told her she deserved more recognition, or more influence, more power, more than a husband who worked at a nonprofit. Nathan had heard the shift before he ever saw it. The way she introduced him at events changed first. This is my husband, Nathan. He works in community housing. It sounded polite. It sounded respectful. But there was always something under it. A quiet apology, a subtle correction, as if she needed to explain why he was standing next to her. Then came the questions. Do you really need to spend weekends on site? Do you think about your long-term future? Have you ever considered doing something bigger? Nathan had answered those questions calmly. He always did, because the truth wasn't something he could explain without unraveling everything. Across the ballroom, Victoria finally noticed him. Her smile didn't fade, but it changed. She said something to Logan, then started walking toward Nathan with a kind of controlled precision that made it clear she had already decided how this conversation would go. Logan followed, just half a step behind. Judith Holloway arrived from the opposite side, as if summoned by instinct alone. Nathan didn't move. He stood where he was, hands relaxed at his sides. When Victoria reached him, her voice was low, but sharp.
You actually showed up.
Nathan met her eyes. Her smile tightened. Not anymore. Judith stepped in immediately. You were taken off the guest list, she said, loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. Security can handle this if you don't leave. A few guests turned, then a few more. The phone shifted, adjusting angles. Nathan could feel the attention gathering. He didn't look away. I just have one question, he said calmly. Victoria exhaled through her nose, already irritated. This is not the time. Did you sign my name on that loan? For a fraction of a second, something flickered across her face. Then it was gone. That loan, she said, her voice rising just enough to carry, is the reason my company is still standing? Judith nodded sharply. And you want to throw that away over paperwork? A quiet murmur spread. Nathan didn't raise his voice. It wasn't paperwork. It was my signature. Logan shifted slightly, watching the room more than the conversation. Victoria stepped closer. You have embarrassed me for the last time, she said. Then she reached for a glass from a passing tray. The movement was quick, deliberate. The wine hit Nathan before anyone could react. Cold, sharp, final. Laughter broke from somewhere in the crowd, not loud, not unified, but enough. Victoria didn't stop there. She took another glass, poured it slowly over his shoulder. Men like you don't belong here. The words landed harder than the wine. Judith turned to the surrounding guests, her voice composed, almost conversational. Some people don't understand their place. A few people smiled. Others simply watched. Nathan didn't move. Wine dripped from his collar down the front of his shirt. He didn't wipe it away. He didn't argue. He didn't leave. Because leaving would mean accepting the version of him they believed in, and that version wasn't real. Somewhere behind the crowd, a man stood from one of the front tables. He didn't rush, he didn't speak. But the way others around him shifted made it clear he mattered. Nathan noticed him, just for a moment. And then he looked back at Victoria, still calm, still standing, as if the night hadn't even started yet. The man who stood from the front table did not rush. He didn't need to. The movement itself was enough. A subtle shift spread through the ballroom. Conversation stalled mid-sentence. A few guests turned, recognizing him before they fully understood why. Nathan saw it happen in real time, the way attention peeled away from him. The way the room instinctively recalibrated around a different center of gravity. Victoria didn't notice. She was still too focused on him. Leave, she said, her voice tight now, less controlled than before. You've made your point. Nathan didn't move. Wine continued to drip from his sleeve onto the polished floor. He could feel it soaking into the fabric, cooling against his skin, but he ignored it. Judith stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound refined, but still loud enough for the surrounding tables. This is exactly what I warned you about, she said, glancing at Victoria, but clearly speaking for the audience. Men like him always become resentful when they're left behind. A few people nodded. Someone laughed again, quieter this time. Nathan let the silence stretch. He wasn't looking at Judith anymore. He was watching Victoria, really watching her. The way her jaw tightened, the way her eyes flicked briefly toward Logan, as if checking whether he approved of how she was handling this. That was new. It hadn't always been like that. There had been a time when she didn't need validation from anyone else. Now she seemed to need it constantly. Logan stepped forward just slightly, placing himself closer to her side. Not touching, but close enough to signal alignment. His expression was composed, almost sympathetic, but his eyes were calculating. Victoria, Logan said softly, just loud enough to carry, this isn't worth your energy. He glanced at Nathan, then back at her. Some people don't understand when it's time to step aside. It was smooth, clean, designed to sound reasonable. Nathan recognized the tactic immediately. Frame the target as emotional. Position yourself as calm. Win the room without raising your voice. Victoria exhaled slowly, as if grounding herself in Logan's tone. You're right, she said. Then she looked back at Nathan. You need to go. Not angry this time. Certain. Like a decision had already been finalized. Nathan nodded once. A small movement, not agreement. I'll go, he said, after you answer the question. The shift was immediate. Victoria's patience snapped. I already told you. Did you sign it? Nathan repeated, his voice steady. Knowing I hadn't? Silence fell again, heavier this time, because the question wasn't about embarrassment anymore. It was about intent. Judith moved faster than Victoria could respond. This is not the place for legal theatrics, she said sharply. If you have an issue, you take it to your lawyer. You don't come here and try to sabotage a company event. Nathan's gaze didn't leave Victoria. She already took it there, he said. That landed differently. A few people exchanged looks. Logan's posture shifted just slightly. He hadn't expected that. Victoria's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means, Nathan said, the bank flagged the application. He let that sit for a second, which means someone is already asking questions. The room changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Phones lowered just a fraction. A few guests leaned in instead of leaning back, because this was no longer just a messy marriage, this was risk. Logan stepped in again, quicker this time. He said quietly. We don't need to entertain this, but he didn't look at her. He looked at Nathan, measuring. Nathan met his gaze. For the first time that night, Logan didn't look entirely in control. Victoria crossed her arms. Nathan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The calm was enough. It always had been. Judith scoffed, stepping forward again, reclaiming the space. Even if there is some review, she said, dismissive, it will be resolved. That's how business works. Nathan almost smiled. Almost. Because she was right about one thing. He understood exactly how it worked. More than anyone in that room, more than she ever had. But he didn't say that, not yet. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, white, clean. He wiped the wine from his face slowly, deliberately, as if the entire room had all the time in the world to watch him do it. No rush. No embarrassment. Just control. Victoria watched him, confusion flickering beneath her anger now, because something didn't fit. Men who were actually powerless didn't behave like this. They reacted, they defended, they apologized, they left. Nathan did none of those things. Behind them, the man from the front table had moved closer, not directly into the circle, but close enough to observe without interruption. Nathan noticed him again. So did Logan. Logan's eyes flicked toward the man, then back to Nathan. A calculation clicked into place, small but visible. Security, Judith called, raising her voice again. We're done here. 2 staff members started moving through the crowd, slow at first, then more direct. Nathan folded the handkerchief and slipped it back into his pocket. He looked at Victoria one last time, not angry, not hurt, just clear. You're right about one thing, he said, her chin lifted. I know I am. This isn't the place, Nathan said. For a second, she thought she had won, or that he was finally backing down. Then he added, it's just where it becomes public. The words didn't land immediately, but when they did, they stayed. Logan's expression changed first, then Judith's. Victoria's took a second longer, because she still didn't fully understand what he meant. Security was only a few steps away now. The man from the front table stopped walking. He didn't need to get any closer. He simply raised one hand, not high, not dramatic, or just enough. And the 2 security staff members stopped mid-step, like they had just remembered something or someone. A ripple moved through the front section of the room, subtle, but unmistakable. Nathan didn't turn around, he already knew. Behind him, a voice spoke. Calm, controlled, familiar in a way that didn't belong to this version of the night. Nathan, not sir, not Mr. Ashford, just his name, but said like it carried weight, the kind of weight that didn't need explanation. Victoria froze. Judith went still. Logan didn't move at all, because suddenly the room wasn't watching a failed husband anymore. It was waiting, and for the first time that night, Nathan wasn't the only one who knew exactly what was about to happen next. The voice came from behind Nathan, calm and unhurried. He didn't turn immediately. He didn't need to. The reaction in the room told him everything. Charles Ashford stepped forward just enough to be seen, not enough to interrupt. His presence alone carried a quiet authority that didn't belong to the spectacle of the gala. It belonged to something deeper, something structural. Nathan, he repeated, his tone even. Not questioning, not surprised, recognizing. Victoria's breath caught, just slightly. You know him? She asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Charles didn't answer her. His attention remained on Nathan. We should talk, he said. It wasn't a request. It wasn't public either, but the room heard it, and the room understood. Nathan finally turned. For a moment, the noise, the lights, the tension, everything faded into something quieter, more familiar. A space where nothing needed to be performed. Not yet, Nathan said. Soft, but clear. Charles held his gaze, then nodded once. He stepped back, and just like that, the pressure shifted again. Victoria frowned, confusion rising through the anger. What was that? She demanded. Nathan looked at her. He saw it clearly now. Not just the anger, the certainty, or the belief that she still controlled the narrative, that whatever had just happened could be explained away. Managed, he didn't answer her question. Instead, he stepped past her, not away. Through. The movement forced a small opening in the crowd. Guests shifted instinctively, making space without realizing why. Judith's voice followed him. You're not walking away from this conversation. Nathan stopped, turned slightly. I'm not. He said he just wasn't having it on her terms. That distinction mattered. Victoria crossed her arms, regaining composure, piss-pressed. Then, what do you need to say, she pressed. Right here. Nathan looked around the ballroom, the cameras, the phones, the attention. This was her world, control through exposure, through perception. He understood that now more than ever, and he understood something else. If he spoke here, it would become noise, and noise was easy to dismiss. So he shook his head. No. The word landed harder than anything he had said all night. Victoria blinked. No, Nathan repeated. This isn't a conversation for the room. Judith scoffed. Convenient. Nathan didn't react. Instead, he reached into his pocket again. Not for the handkerchief this time, for his phone. Victoria's eyes followed the movement, suspicion flickering. What are you doing? Nathan didn't answer. He unlocked, scrolled once, then stopped. There it was, a notification he hadn't opened yet. He had seen it earlier, before he arrived. He had chosen to ignore it, until now. He tapped it. A message from Victoria Lawson. Time stamped less than 10 minutes ago. His eyes scanned it quickly. Precise language, controlled urgency, exactly what he expected, exactly what he needed. He locked the phone again, then looked up. Victoria was watching him closely now. Logan, too. Judith had gone still, her instincts finally catching up to something she couldn't define yet. What is it? Victoria asked. For the first time, there was something else in her voice. Not anger. Not control, uncertainty. Nathan held her gaze for a moment. Then he said, you should call your lawyer. The reaction was immediate. Judith laughed, sharp and dismissive. Is that supposed to be a threat? No, Nathan said. It's advice. Logan stepped forward again, more aggressive this time. You don't get to stand here, and Nathan cut him off without raising his voice. This doesn't involve you. Logan froze, not because of the words, because of how they were said. Flat, certain, like a statement of fact, not opinion. Victoria turned to Logan instinctively, searching for direction. He didn't give it, not immediately, because for the first time he didn't have it. Nathan saw that too, and something inside him settled. A line had been crossed, not by them, by him. He wasn't going to argue for space in a room that had already decided who he was. He was going to take it. He stepped back once, creating distance between himself and the three of them. Whatever you think this is, Victoria said, trying to recover control, you don't get to walk in here and make demands. Nathan almost corrected her. But he didn't, because she still didn't understand, and that mattered more than anything else in that moment. I'm not making demands, he said. Then what are you doing? Nathan paused, just long enough for the room to lean in again. Giving you time, he said. The words landed quietly, but they spread. Because they didn't sound like a bluff, they sounded like something else, something measured. Victoria's expression hardened. Time for what? Nathan looked at her, at Judith, at Logan. 3 people standing together. 3 people who believed they were aligned. 3 people who had built decisions on the same assumption, that he didn't matter. That depends on what you do next, he said. Silence. Then Judith stepped forward again, sharper now, more force behind her words. You're finished here, she said. Whatever illusion you're trying to create, it ends now. Nathan didn't move, didn't argue, didn't react. He simply stepped aside, and in doing so, he made something clear. He wasn't leaving because they told him to. He was leaving because he chose to. That difference followed him as he walked toward the exit. The crowd parted again, more quickly this time, less curiosity, more caution. No one stopped him, no one laughed, phones lowered. Conversations died before they started. Behind him, Victoria's voice cut through the silence. This isn't over. Nathan didn't turn around, he said, and he meant it. Outside the ballroom, the air felt different, quieter, real. He stepped into the corridor and finally exhaled. Not relief, not yet. Just distance. His phone vibrated again. Same contact. Victoria Lawson, he answered this time. Tell me, he said. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. We have a problem, she said. Nathan leaned slightly against the wall, listening. The bank didn't just flag the loan, she continued. They've escalated it. And based on what we're seeing, she paused. Not for effect, for precision. This is bigger than we thought. Nathan's eyes closed for a brief second. Not in surprise. In confirmig, he asked, a beat of silence. Then, big enough that you're going to have to decide, she said, whether you still want to keep this quiet. Nathan opened his eyes, and for the first time that night, the question wasn't about them anymore. It was about him and what he was willing to let continue. Nathan didn't answer right away. He let the silence settle between him and Victoria Lawson's voice on the line. In the background, he could still hear the faint echo of the gala through the open ballroom doors, music resuming, conversations picking back up, the illusion repairing itself. What exactly are we looking at? He asked. Victoria didn't hesitate. Multiple red flags tied to the same transaction, she said. Not just the forged signature. There are irregular transfers linked to Sterling Premier Events operating accounts. We're seeing funds routed through a consulting entity. Nathan already knew the name before she said it. Mercer Strategic Consulting, she confirmed. Nathan exhaled slowly, his gaze drifting down the empty corridor. How much? Enough that it's not a one-time decision, she said. This wasn't done under pressure, it was structured. That landed harder than anything else. Structured meant time, planning, agreement. Who has access? Nathan asked. Your wife, Victoria, said. And anyone she authorized. Nathan's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. And the bank? They've escalated internally, she replied. Which means compliance is reviewing it now. If they determine intent to misrepresent collateral or identity, it moves beyond a civil dispute into criminal territory. Nathan knew exactly what that meant, and so would Victoria eventually. He leaned back against the wall, eyes closing briefly as the pieces aligned. The loan, the timing, the gala. The contract Victoria believed was already hers. They think the deal is done, he said quietly. They're acting it is, Victoria Lawson replied. Which makes this worse. If they move forward under that assumption, they expose themselves further. Nathan opened his eyes. How long do we have? A few days, she said. Maybe less if the bank accelerates. That wasn't much. Not for something this layered. Not for something this personal. Do nothing, Nathan said. There was a pause on the line. Victoria didn't misunderstand him. She just didn't agree immediately. You want to wait, she said. I want to see how far they go, Nathan corrected. Another pause. Longer this time, you're taking a risk, she said carefully. If more transactions happen, they already believe I won't fight, Nathan said. That's the assumption everything else is built on. He pushed off the wall, starting down the corridor. I need that assumption to hold, he added. Victoria Lawson understood. She always did. I'll keep the dispute active, she said, but contained. Good. And Nathan, she added, her tone shifting slightly, once this crosses into enforcement, you won't be able to control how it plays out. He knew that too. I'm not trying to control it, he said. I'm trying to understand it. He ended the call. For a moment, he stood there, phone still in his hand. Then he slipped it back into his pocket and walked toward the exit. Outside, the night air was cooler, quieter. It stripped away the performance of the ballroom almost instantly. Nathan paused on the steps of the Grand Crescent Hotel. Behind him, the gala continued. Victoria was still inside, still moving through that room like she owned it, still believing she was in control. He didn't go back. He left. The next morning, nothing about the house looked different. That was the first thing Nathan noticed. The same quiet street. The same front door. The same carefully maintained landscaping that had never technically belonged to either of them. But the feeling had changed. It wasn't subtle. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Victoria was already awake. She stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, pacing slightly. Her tone was sharp, controlled, the kind of voice she used when she expected to be listened to. Yes, I saw the message, she was saying. No, it's not an issue. It's being handled. Nathan set his keys down quietly. She turned. Her expression shifted immediately, from professional to personal, from composed to defensive. Where were you? She asked. Nathan met her gaze. Out. That wasn't the answer she wanted. I called you, she said. Multiple times I saw. And you didn't think to answer? Nathan walked past her toward the counter. Not while you were still at the gala, her eyes narrowed. You made a scene. Nathan paused, turned slightly. You poured wine on me, he said. Her jaw tightened. You provoked it. There it was. Not denial. Justification. Nathan nodded once, absorbing it without reacting. Is that what you told everyone? He asked. That's what happened, she said firmly. Nathan reached for a glass, filled it with water, took a sip. Simple actions. Normal. Grounding. Victoria watched him, irritation building again. You embarrassed me in front of clients, she continued, important ones. Do you understand what that does to my position? Nathan set the glass down. I understand what signing someone else's name does, he said. Silence. For a second, she didn't respond. Then she exhaled sharply. We're not doing this again. We are, Nathan said. No, she snapped. We're not. The loan was necessary. The company needed liquidity, and I made a decision. You used my identity, Nathan said. We're married. She shot back. It's not the same as using a stranger's. Nathan looked at her. Really looked. Trying to find the person he had married inside the person standing in front of him. She was still there, he realized. Just buried. Under pressure, under influence, under something else. You didn't ask, he said. I didn't have time to ask, she replied. And I knew you'd say no. That didn't stop you, no, she said. And she didn't hesitate. That was the part that stayed with him. Not the act, the certainty. Judith's voice echoed in his memory. Men like you don't belong here. Nathan stepped back slightly, creating space. I want access, he said. To what? Victoria asked. All financial records tied to the loan, he said. Full documentation. Her expression hardened again. That's not your concern, it is if my name is on it. It's under control. Nathan held her gaze. That's not an answer. She hesitated. Just for a moment, then she looked away. It's being managed, she said. Different wording, same meaning. Or at least the same attempt. Nathan didn't push further. Or not yet, because pushing now would close doors he still needed open. Instead, he nodded once. Fine. Victoria blinked, thrown off by the lack of resistance. Fine? For now, he said. He picked up his keys again. I'm heading to the site, he added. You're seriously going to work right now? She asked, incredulous. Nathan paused at the door. Yeah, he said, because that part of his life was still real, still his, and he wasn't going to let her rewrite it. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him, and only then did he allow himself to think about what Victoria Lawson had said. Structured, not impulsive, that meant more than just the loan. It meant intent. Coordination. Nathan pulled out his phone again, opened the alert from the night before. This time he didn't just read it, he started tracing it. Line by line, transaction by transaction, names, entities, patterns. It didn't take long. One detail stood out almost immediately. A transfer. Not large enough to draw attention on its own, but consistent, repeated, and always routed through the same account, Mercer's Strategic Consulting. Nathan stared at the screen, then at the address attached to the last transaction. It wasn't a business location. It was residential. He looked up, made a decision, and started the engine. Because if Victoria thought this was just about a loan, she had no idea what she had actually set in motion. The address led him out of the city. Not far enough to feel remote, just far enough to feel separate. Nathan drove without rushing, one hand steady on the wheel, the other resting near his phone. The GPS voice repeated the same quiet directions, but he barely registered them. His focus stayed on the pattern in his head. Transfers, dates, amounts that didn't draw attention on their own, but stacked into something else entirely. He had seen this structure before. Not in his own life, in companies that didn't last. In reports that ended with quiet investigations and public statements that used careful language to describe things that were never accidental. When he pulled into the complex, nothing about it suggested a business. It was residential, clean, recently renovated. The kind of place that rented quickly to people who wanted privacy more than permanence. Nathan parked across the street. Didn't get out immediately. He watched. One unit in particular. Second floor, corner. The address matched. There were no signs. No company name. No indication that anything corporate existed behind those walls. Just a quiet apartment. Exactly the kind of place you used when you didn't want anything traced too easily. Nathan leaned back slightly in his seat, eyes narrowing. Then his phone buzzed again. Victoria, he let it ring once, twice, then answered. She asked. No greeting, no pause. At work, he said. A lie, but a necessary one. There was a beat of silence. Then she exhaled sharply. We need to talk. We already did. No, she snapped. We didn't. You walked out. Nathan watched the building. You told me to leave. That's not the point. It usually is. Another pause. He could hear her adjusting, recalibrating her tone. We have a situation, she said finally. The bank contacted us this morning. Nathan said nothing. They're asking questions about the loan, she continued. It's routine, compliance review. It happens all the time. The way she said it made it clear she was trying to convince her, not him. Nathan shifted slightly in his seat. What did you tell them? That everything is in order, she said. Because it is. Nathan glanced up at the apartment window. Still nothing. No movement, no sign of anyone inside. Is it? Her voice hardened again. Yes, a simple answer. Too simple. Nathan let the silence stretch just long enough to make it uncomfortable. You should send me the documentation, he said. I told you, she replied. Sharper now. It's being handled internally, it's my name on it, and I've already explained that. Nathan closed his eyes for a second. Not out of frustration, out of clarity. She wasn't going to give him access. Not because she couldn't. Because she didn't want him to see something. Then let your lawyer send it, he said. Another pause. Longer this time. I don't need to involve legal yet, she said. Nathan almost smiled. That told him everything. Because she already had. She just didn't want him talking to the same person. Victoria, he said. Quieter now. This doesn't stay internal if the bank escalates. It won't escalate, she insisted. Nathan looked at the building again, second floor, her corner unit. And if it does, he asked. She didn't answer right away, because she hadn't planned for that. Finally, she said, then we deal with it. Nathan heard the word clearly, but it didn't mean what it used to. Send me the documents, he said again. No, flat immediate. Final, Nathan nodded once, even though she couldn't see him. Okay, the word caught her off guard. Okay, she repeated. For now, he said. Same answer as before. Same meaning. He ended the call before she could push further. For a moment, he just sat there. Then he opened his phone again, pulled up the transaction history. The last transfer to Mercer Strategic Consulting had been 3 days ago, mid-afternoon, timing that matched Victoria's schedule, or Logan's, or both. Nathan stepped out of the car. The air felt heavier here, quieter. He crossed the street, not hiding, not rushing, just moving with purpose. When he reached the building entrance, he paused. Looked at the directory panel, no business names, just unit numbers. He pressed the intercom for the unit, waited, no response. He pressed again, still nothing. Nathan stepped back slightly, glancing up toward the second-floor window. This time, there was movement. A shadow crossing the glass, then stillness again. Someone was inside, watching, but not answering. Nathan didn't press again. He didn't knock. He turned, walked back to his car, because forcing the door wouldn't give him what he needed. Not yet. He got in, started the engine, but didn't pull away immediately. Instead, he opened his phone one more time, scrolled back through the records. There, a second detail. One he hadn't noticed before, a payment labeled as a consultation fee. But the amount didn't match any legitimate consulting structure. It matched something else, rent, or at least it covered it. Nathan's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Victoria wasn't just working with Logan. She was funding something, a space, a separate life. He leaned back, staring at the building one last time, then finally drove away. That evening, the house felt different again, not because anything had changed physically, but because Nathan had. Victoria was in the living room when he walked in, laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. She looked up immediately. You didn't answer my messages, she said. Nathan set his keys down. I was busy. With what? She pressed. Nathan walked past her toward the kitchen, work. She stood, frustration rising again. Stop doing that. Doing what? Acting like this isn't serious. Nathan turned, meeting her gaze. It is serious, he said. Then act like it, she snapped. I am. The calm in his voice made her hesitate. Just for a second. Then she shook her head. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Nathan studied her, really studied her, trying to understand where the line had been crossed, or if it had ever been there at all. Who else knows? He asked. The question caught her off guard. What, the loan? Nathan said. Who else knows about it? She hesitated. Just long enough. No one who matters, she said. Nathan nodded slowly. Because that wasn't an answer, it was a deflection, and it confirmed what he already suspected. Logan knew. Maybe Judith, maybe others. But not the people who would actually hold them accountable. Victoria, he said. Quieter. Now this doesn't end the way you think it does. Her expression hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Nathan held her gaze. I know more than you think. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes again. Doubt, small, but there. Then it disappeared, replaced by the same certainty, the same belief. You've always underestimated what I can handle, she said. Nathan didn't respond, because this wasn't about what she could handle. It was about what she had already set in motion. His phone vibrated again. He didn't check it immediately, but he felt it, persistent. He reached into his pocket, pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Victoria Lawson. Again. Nathan looked back at Victoria, then answered, Yes. Her voice was sharper this time. Faster. They've frozen part of the account, she said, and Nathan, she paused. Not for effect, because the next part mattered. There's a second signature tied to the transaction. Nathan's expression didn't change, but something inside him did. Shifted, locked into place, he asked. A beat, then Logan Mercer's. Nathan didn't look at Victoria when the name left Victoria Lawson's mouth. He didn't need to. The shift in the room told him everything. Victoria Holloway went still, not dramatic, not loud, just a subtle tightening in her shoulders, like something inside her had recalculated and didn't like the result. Repeat that, Nathan said quietly. On the other end of the line, Victoria Lawson didn't hesitate. There's a secondary authorization tied to the outgoing transfers. It's not just your name on the loan. Logan Mercer is connected to at least one of the transactions. Nathan nodded once, slow, controlled. Across from him, Victoria was watching now, carefully. What does that mean? Nathan asked. It means, Victoria Lawson said, her tone precise. This isn't just a personal guarantee issue. It suggests coordinated financial activity, possibly misrepresentation of purpose, possibly more. Nathan understood the language. She was being careful, because what she could say and what she could prove were not the same thing. Send me everything, he said. I already have a preliminary file, she replied. But Nathan, this escalates things, I know. He ended the call before she could say more. Silence settled between him and Victoria. Thick, heavy. She was the first to speak. Why is your lawyer talking about Logan? Nathan looked at her then, really looked, trying to see if there was any version of this where she hadn't known, where she had been manipulated, where she had made a mistake instead of a decision. He didn't find it. Maybe you should answer that, he said. Her expression sharpened. I just told you, I don't know what she's talking about. Nathan held her gaze. You signed a loan using my identity, he said. Now my lawyer is telling me your consultant is tied to the money. And you don't know what she's talking about? Her jaw tightened. Logan has nothing to do with this. Nathan didn't raise his voice, didn't move closer, but something in the room shifted it anyway. Then explain the second signature. She hesitated. There it was again, that small pause. The one she couldn't control. It's probably administrative, she said quickly. He's advising on contracts. His firm processes certain payments. That doesn't mean anything. Nathan nodded slowly. Because it did mean something. It meant she had already built a version of the truth she was willing to defend, even if it didn't hold. Where is he right now? Nathan asked. The question landed harder than the others. Why does that matter? She snapped. Because I want to understand the structure, Nathan said evenly. If his firm is tied to the loan, then he's involved. He's working, she said, like the rest of us. Nathan let that sit. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen toward her, the address, the one tied to Mercer Strategic Consulting. I stopped by earlier, he said. Her eyes flickered just for a second. You had no right, she started. It's not an office, Nathan cut in. It's an apartment. Silence, not denial, not anger, just silence. Nathan watched her carefully. Do you want to explain that? He asked. Her composure cracked, not completely, but enough. You're making assumptions, she said. You always do this. You take one detail and build a whole story around it. Nathan almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was familiar. You're right, he said. Let's keep it simple. He stepped closer, not aggressive, just enough to make the space between them impossible to ignore. Is Logan using company funds for personal expenses? He asked. No. Is he tied to the loan? No. Is there anything about that account I should know before the bank decides to look deeper? Her answer came slower this time. No. Nathan held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, again. That word, the one she didn't understand. Stop saying that, she snapped. Stop acting like you're fine with this. I'm not, Nathan said calmly. Then act like it I am. The difference now was that she could feel it. Before, his calm had felt passive, now it felt deliberate. And that unsettled her more than anything else. She stepped back, crossing her arms. You're overreacting. This is how business works. You take risks, you leverage assets, you don't panic every time something looks complicated. Nathan studied her. This isn't complicated, he said. It's illegal. Her eyes flashed. That's your opinion. It's the law, she scoffed. You don't know anything about that world. The words landed harder than she intended, or maybe exactly as she intended. Nathan didn't respond immediately. He let the silence stretch again. Because this part mattered. Not the accusation, the assumption behind it. You're right, he said finally. She blinked, caught off guard. I don't know anything about your world, he continued, but I know enough to recognize when something is built on lies. Her expression hardened again. You think I'm lying? I think you're protecting something and you're not? The question hung between them. Sharp, accurate, dangerous. Nathan met her gaze, didn't look away. Yes, he said. That stopped her, completely. Because it was the first honest answer he had given that cut both ways. What does that mean? She asked, quieter now. Nathan didn't answer. Not yet, because this wasn't the moment, not the room, not the way. Instead, he stepped back, creating space again. I'm going to get everything I need from my lawyer, he said. You should do the same. Her voice sharpened again, defensive now. I already have legal counsel, I know, Nathan said. Then stop acting like I'm hiding something. Nathan picked up his keys from the counter. I'm not acting, he said. He walked toward the door. Where are you going? She demanded. Out. That's not an answer. It's enough. He didn't wait for her to respond. Didn't give her another chance to control the conversation. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him. The night air felt colder than before. Cleaner. Nathan walked to his car, but he didn't get in right away. He stood there for a moment, looking at the house. The house held under the Ashford family trust. The house she believed she owned. The house she had used as collateral on a loan that legally couldn't touch it. He exhaled slowly, then finally got in. His phone was already in his hand. He didn't hesitate this time. He called Victoria Lawson. She answered on the first ring. I need everything, he said, full access. Every document tied to the loan, every transfer, every account connected to Mercer Strategic Consulting. There was a pause. Then, I was hoping you'd say that. Nathan started the engine. There's more, isn't there? He asked. Yes, she said. And you're not going to like it. Nathan pulled out onto the street. Tell me, another pause. Then funds tied to your name weren't just redirected, she said. They were used as leverage for something bigger. Nathan's grip tightened slightly on the wheel. What kind of leverage? Victoria Lawson didn't answer immediately, because the answer changed everything. A pending contract, she said finally. One tied directly to Blackstone Meridian Holdings. Nathan's eyes narrowed. And for the first time since the loan alert appeared, the distance between what Victoria believed and what was actually happening became dangerous, very dangerous. The word Blackstone stayed in Nathan's mind long after the call ended, not because he didn't understand it, because he understood it too well. He drove in silence for several minutes, the city lights of Charlotte sliding past his windshield, his thoughts tightening into something sharper, more focused. Victoria Lawson hadn't said much, but she didn't need to. A contract tied to Blackstone Meridian Holdings wasn't just another deal. It was the deal. The one Sterling Premier of Events had been chasing for months. The one Victoria had been building her entire narrative around. The one she believed would change everything. Nathan exhaled slowly, and now it was tied to a loan taken out in his name. He pulled into a quiet side street and stopped the car. Then he made the second call. Charles Ashford picked up on the third ring. Nathan, no hesitation, no surprise, just recognition. Tell me about the Sterling Premier Events bid, Nathan's said. There was a pause. Not confusion, calculation. You want the internal position or the public one? Charles asked. The real one. Another pause. Then Charles sighed lightly. They're not the front-runner, he said. They haven't been for weeks. Nathan closed his eyes briefly. He already knew. But hearing it confirmed made something settle into place. Why? He asked. Cash flow, instability, vendor complaints, irregularities in client deposits. And recently, Charles hesitated for the first time. Risk indicators tied to financial misrepresentation. Nathan's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. And Logan Mercer? He asked. He's been advocating for them, Charles said, pushing internally, positioning himself as the reason they're still being considered. Nathan almost smiled. Of course he was. And the contract? Nathan asked. It hasn't been awarded, Charles replied. It's under review. Final decision scheduled for announcement at the Blackstone Leadership Gala. Nathan looked out at the dark street. The same gala, the same night. Everything converging in one place. Keep the process unchanged, Nathan said. No adjustments, no signals. Charles was quiet for a moment. You're sure? He asked. Yes. You understand what that means, Charles continued. If they collapse before the decision, we lose the option to structure a controlled acquisition. Nathan didn't answer immediately, because he did understand. He understood the numbers, the leverage, the consequences. But he also understood something else. They won't collapse before the gala, Nathan said. Charles didn't ask how he knew. Understood, he replied. Nathan ended the call and sat there for a moment longer. Then he drove. Not back home, not yet. Instead, he headed toward Harbor Hope Housing Alliance. The building was quiet when he arrived. Most of the staff had already left for the night. Only a few lights were still on inside. Nathan unlocked the door with his key and stepped in. The familiar smell of old wood and paperwork grounding him in a way nothing else had that day. This was real. This was work that didn't depend on perception or status. This was where people showed up and did what needed to be done. He walked to his office, closed the door, and sat down. Then he opened his laptop. The email from Victoria Lawson was already there. Attachments, several. He opened the first file. Transaction summary he scanned quickly. Dates, amounts, accounts. Then he stopped. A transfer. Not large enough to stand out on its own, but connected, linked through a secondary routing account. Mercer Strategic Consulting. Nathan leaned back slightly, then opened the second file. Expense breakdown. This one was clearer, too clear. Luxury resort booking in Virginia. 2 guests, no client reference, no business justification, vehicle rentals, high-end, multiple dates, no matching invoices, a watch purchase, delivered to a private address. Logan Mercer's address. Nathan didn't react, didn't feel anger the way most people would expect. What he felt was something quieter, something colder, confirmation. He opened the third file. Property deposit. His eyes narrowed. The name on the lease wasn't Logan's, it was Victoria's. He stared at it for a long moment, then closed the file. Sat still, because this wasn't speculation anymore. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a pattern, and patterns didn't lie. Nathan reached for his phone again. He didn't call Victoria, he didn't call Charles. He called Victoria Lawson. She answered immediately. "You've seen it," she said. "Yes." A pause. Then softer, more measured. "Do you want to proceed formally?" Formal meant, said the question. Legal filings, investigations, exposure. It meant turning something private into something public, and once that line was crossed, there was no pulling it back. "Not yet," he said. Victoria Lawson didn't argue. She never did. "What's your timeline?" she asked. "The Gala," Nathan said. Another pause. "You're going to let this continue until then?" "I'm going to let them believe it will," he corrected. Victoria Lawson exhaled quietly. "Understood," she said. "I'll maintain the dispute status without escalation. But Nathan, if additional funds move, they won't," he said, because now is watching, closely. He ended the call and leaned back in his chair. The office was silent again, but it felt different now, not passive, not uncertain, structured. He opened a new folder on his laptop, labeled it simply, documentation. Then he started organizing every file, every transaction, every timestamp. He wasn't reacting anymore. He was building something for carefully, deliberate. Minutes passed, then an hour. By the time he finally closed the laptop, the structure was in place. Not complete, but enough. Enough to move. Nathan stood, grabbed his jacket, and turned off the light. As he stepped out of the office, his phone buzzed again. A message, unknown number. He glanced at it briefly, then stopped, opened it. A photo, Victoria and Logan, not at an event, not in a public setting, in a private apartment. Close. Too close to be explained away. The message below the image was short. "Thought you should know." Nathan stared at the screen for a long moment, then locked the phone without replying. No anger, no shock, just clarity. He stepped outside into the night again, and for the first time since all of this began, the situation wasn't something happening to him. It was something he was allowing to unfold, on his terms. His phone buzzed one more time. This time it was Victoria. He watched it rings. Let it go to voicemail. A second later, new message came through. "We need to talk now." Nathan looked at the words, then at the dark street ahead of him, and finally he made a decision. Not about her, not about the marriage, about the timing. He opened his calendar, scrolled, then tapped on one date, Blackstone Leadership Gala, and beneath it a private note. Final approval authority, pending chairman confirmation. Nathan closed the app, slipped the phone back into his pocket, and walked to his car, because now there was only one question left. Not whether the truth would come out, but who would be standing when it did. Victoria didn't wait for him to arrive. By the time Nathan stepped through the front door, the house already felt different. Not louder, not chaotic, just colder. Like something had shifted while he was gone, and whatever it was had no intention of hiding anymore. Victoria stood in the living room, still in her work clothes, heels on, posture straight. Logan Mercer leaned casually against the kitchen counter behind her, a glass of wine in his hand like he belonged there. Nathan noticed that first. Not the anger, not the tension, the ease. Logan didn't look like a guest. He looked comfortable. You finally decided to show up, Victoria said. Her voice was controlled, but there was an edge underneath it. I've been calling you. Nathan set his keys down on the entry table. I saw, he said. He didn't apologize. That was new. Victoria's eyes narrowed slightly at the lack of reaction. We need to talk, she said, now. Nathan glanced briefly toward Logan, then back to her. About what? He asked. Logan smiled faintly, the kind that never reached his eyes. About how you're handling things, Logan said smoothly, because from where I'm standing, it's getting complicated. Nathan didn't respond to him. Victoria stepped forward. Don't do that, she snapped. Don't ignore him. Logan is part of this now. Part of this. Nathan repeated the phrase silently, then nodded once. Then say what you need to say, he replied. Victoria exhaled sharply, like she had been waiting for resistance and didn't know what to do with calm. You filed a dispute on the loan, she said. It wasn't a question, yes, Nathan said. You had no right to do that without talking to me first. Nathan looked at her for a moment. No right, he repeated. Victoria's jaw tightened. You're putting the company at risk, she continued, right before the biggest contract of my career. Do you understand what that means? I understand exactly what it means, Nathan said. Logan pushed off the counter slightly, stepping closer. What it means, he said, tone still calm, is that Sterling Premier Events is about to secure a contract that will change its position in the market. And you, he gestured toward Nathan, are creating legal noise that could scare off investors. Nathan finally looked at him directly. And what exactly is your role in that contract? Nathan asked. Logan didn't hesitate. Advisory, he said. Strategic positioning, relationships. Nathan nodded slowly. Relationships, he repeated. Victoria stepped in again, cutting off whatever came next. This isn't about him, she said. This is about you. You've always had a problem with the fact that I'm building something bigger than you ever have. Nathan didn't react immediately, because that wasn't new. That accusation had been forming for months. Tonight it just sounded clearer. I don't have a problem with what you're building, he said. I have a problem with how you're doing it. Victoria laughed once. Short, sharp. Don't pretend this is about ethics, she said. You've never understood what it takes to operate at this level. Nathan held her gaze. And you think using my identity without consent is part of that? It's a temporary solution, she said quickly. The loan will be repaid as soon as the Blackstone contract closes. Nathan didn't correct her. Didn't tell her that the contract wasn't secured. Didn't tell her that everything she was betting on was already slipping. He just watched her. Because what mattered wasn't the lie, it was how easily she believed it. You didn't even consider asking me, he said. Victoria's expression hardened. Because I knew you'd say no. There it was. Simple, clean, final. Logan took another step forward, his voice lowering slightly. Look, Nathan, he said, like he was explaining something obvious. Sometimes decisions get made for the good of the bigger picture. You're not in a position to see that, but Victoria is. Nathan turned his head. You are? He asked. Logan's smile returned. I help people like her win. Nathan let the silence stretch for a second. Then he nodded once. I see. Victoria crossed her arms. What I need from you, she said, is simple. Withdraw the dispute. Nathan didn't answer immediately. You're asking me to accept legal liability for something I didn't authorize, he said. I'm asking you to support your wife, she shot back. Nathan's expression didn't change. This isn't support, he said quietly. This is exposure. Victoria's patience snapped. You are unbelievable, she said. 6 years, Nathan. 6 years of me carrying this marriage forward, and the one time I need you to step up, you decide to play victim. The words landed harder than the tone. Not because of the accusation, because of what it revealed, carrying. That's how she saw it. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slightly. If that's how you see it, he said, then we don't have the same understanding of what this marriage is. Logan shifted his weight, watching carefully now. Victoria's expression changed again. Not anger this time, decision. Then maybe we don't have a marriage, she said. The room went quiet, not dramatic, just still. Nathan didn't react, didn't argue. That seemed to unsettle her more than anything else. You're really going to do this? She asked. I'm not the one who made that decision, he replied. Victoria stared at him, searching for something, an apology, a concession, something. There was nothing there. Logan stepped in again, softer now. Victoria, he said, you don't need to drag this out. Nathan glanced at him, and this time there was no question about it. The alignment, the timing. The way Logan spoke like the outcome was already decided. Victoria straightened slightly. Then she turned back to Nathan. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," she said. Another pause. "I'm filing for divorce." Nathan let the words settle. Not because he didn't expect them, because now they were real. "I see," he said. No anger, no raised voice. Just acknowledgement. Victoria's eyes flickered, just for a second. "Good," she said quickly, like she needed to regain control. "Then you understand what happens next." Nathan didn't answer, because he did understand, just not in the way she meant. "You'll vacate the house," she continued. "We'll divide the accounts. I'll handle the legal side, and you stay away from anything connected to Sterling Premier events." Nathan almost smiled. "Almost. You're asking for a lot of certainty," he said. "I'm stating facts," she replied. Nathan nodded once. Then he picked up his keys again. "I'm not withdrawing the dispute," he said. Victoria's expression hardened completely. "Then you're going to regret that," she said. Nathan looked at her one last time. "Maybe," he said. Then he turned and walked toward the door. Logan didn't stop him. Victoria didn't call after him. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Outside, the night air felt colder, clearer. Nathan walked to his car without rushing, without looking back, because there was nothing behind him anymore that needed his attention. He got in, started the engine, and sat there for a moment. Then his phone rang. "Victoria Lawson." He answered. "It's happening faster than I expected," she said. Nathan listened. "Victoria filed?" she asked. "Yes." A pause. Then we proceed." Nathan didn't respond immediately, because now the lines were drawn, clearly, cleanly. "Prepare everything," he said. There was a shift in her tone, sharper, more precise. "Understood." Nathan ended the call. Then he looked down at the dashboard clock. And for the first time since all of this began, the timeline wasn't uncertain anymore. It was locked. The gala, the contract, the investigation, the divorce, all of it converging. And Victoria still believed she was in control. Nathan put the car in drive. Because in 6 days, everything she thought she understood about him was going to be tested in a room she had spent her entire career trying to own. The divorce filing arrived faster than Nathan expected. Not by mail. Not through a quiet legal notice, but through a public filing that was already circulating online before he even finished his morning coffee. Victoria hadn't just filed. She had made sure people saw it. Nathan stood in his office at Harbor Hope Housing Alliance, phone in his hand, reading the document line by line. It was clean, structured, professional, and completely rewritten. According to the filing, Victoria Holloway was the primary financial contributor to the marriage. She claimed that Nathan had contributed minimal income, that he had relied on her professional success, and that his recent behavior, including disputing the loan, was retaliatory and destabilizing. There was a clause requesting exclusive use of the house, another requesting the majority of shared accounts, and a final section restricting Nathan from contacting any business partners connected to Sterling Premier events. Nathan read it twice, then set the phone down. Not because he was overwhelmed, because he was measuring. Every claim, every assumption, every line built on the same foundation, that he had nothing, that he couldn't fight back, that he wouldn't. The office door opened quietly. Mark, one of the senior coordinators, stepped in halfway before stopping. "You okay?" he asked carefully. Nathan nodded once. Mark hesitated. "I saw something online," he said, "about your wife. Is that real?" Nathan held his gaze for a second, then nodded again. "It's real." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "You need anything?" he asked. Nathan thought about it, then shook his head. "No, but I appreciate it." Mark nodded and stepped back out, closing the door behind him. Nathan sat down slowly. The quiet inside the office felt different now. Not just private, or isolated. He reached for his laptop again. Opened. The files were still there. Clean, organized, unanswered. Then his phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message, it was a video, sent by an unknown contact. Nathan opened it. It loaded quickly, and within seconds he understood. Judith Holloway sat in a well-lit studio, perfectly composed, speaking directly into a camera. A business interview, the kind that circulated through Charlotte's professional circles within hours. She married ambition, Judith was saying, her tone calm and assured. And sometimes people reveal over time that they simply don't have it. Nathan watched silently. He was comfortable, she continued. comfortable letting someone else build something meaningful while contributing very little himself. And when that dynamic changes, when the person doing the work begins to outgrow the person holding them back, conflict is inevitable. The interviewer nodded. So you believe this is about resentment? Judith smiled faintly. I believe this is about a man who couldn't accept that his wife no longer needed him. Nathan stopped the video, not because he couldn't keep watching, because he had seen enough. He set the phone down again, and this time he didn't sit back. He leaned forward, because now the strategy was clear. They weren't just separating from him. They were rewriting him, reducing him, making him small enough that no one would question what came next. His phone rang. Victoria Lawson, he answered. I assume you've seen the filing, she said. Yes, and the interview? Yes, a brief pause. Then her voice sharpened slightly. They're building a narrative, she said. Public positioning ahead of the gala. Nathan didn't respond immediately, because he already knew. They want control of perception before the contract announcement, she continued. If they secure it, the legal situation becomes secondary in the eyes of most observers. Nathan stood up slowly, walking toward the window. Outside, the city moved the same way it always did. Nothing had changed, except everything had. What's our position, he asked. Victoria Lawson didn't hesitate. Strong, she said. The house is protected under Ashford Family Trust. It cannot be transferred. The loan is valid, the documentation is clear, and the financial irregularities we've identified give us leverage. Nathan nodded slightly. But leverage wasn't the same as timing. They're accelerating, he said. Yes, she replied. Because they believe they can close before consequences catch up. Nathan looked out over the street below. They won't, he said. Victoria Lawson was quiet for a moment. Then do you want to respond publicly? Nathan considered it. A statement. A denial, a correction. All of it would be expected, all of it would feed the narrative. No, he said. Another pause. You're sure? Yes, because responding now meant playing inside their timeline, their structure, their assumptions. Nathan turned away from the window. They think the contract solves everything, he said. Victoria Lawson understood immediately. Yes, she said. They do, then we let them believe that, Nathan replied. There was a shift in her tone again. Approval. Understood. He ended the call. Then picked up his phone again, scrolled, messages, mentions, articles starting to form. The story was spreading, fast. He didn't reply to any of it. Instead, he opened his email and drafted one message, short, direct, to Charles Ashford. Proceed as scheduled. No intervention. Maintain evaluation status. He read it once, then sent it. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Because now the lines weren't just drawn. They were visible, and Victoria was still standing on the wrong side of them. Nathan closed the laptop and stood. He didn't stay in the office, didn't sit in the quiet. He walked out, back into the hallway, back into the work that had nothing to do with contracts or perception, because that mattered, not just to him, to the people who depended on it. He spent the rest of the afternoon on site, reviewing repairs, speaking with contractors, signing off on schedules. Normal work, real work, and for a few hours, the noise faded, until it came back, stronger. When he returned to his car, there was another message waiting, this one from Victoria. He opened it, no greeting, no pretense. You're not coming to the gala. I've removed you from the guest list. Security has your once, then again. Not surprised, just confirming. A second message followed immediately. This isn't your world anymore. Nathan stared at the words, then locked the phone. He didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't correct her, because she was right about one thing. That version of the world, the one she thought she understood, wasn't his. Not anymore. Nathan got into the car, started the engine, and for a moment he just sat there. Then his phone buzzed again. He opened it. A single line. Board confirmation finalized. Chairman designation effective at Gala. Nathan didn't move, didn't react. Just read it once. Then set the phone down slowly. Because now the timing wasn't just aligned, it was locked in. He put the car in drive and pulled out into traffic. While somewhere across the city, Victoria Holloway prepared for a night she believed would secure her future, completely unaware that she had just made sure the one person who could decide that future would walk into the room uninvited. The room that followed the gala was smaller, quieter, but it carried more weight than the ballroom ever could. Nathan stood at the head of the long table inside a private conference suite at the Grand Crescent Hotel. The board of Blackstone Meridian Holdings was already seated. Documents were arranged neatly. Screens displayed summarized reports. There was no spectacle here, or just facts. Charles Ashford stood beside him, calm and deliberate. "We'll proceed," Charles said, his voice steady. No one argued. No one questioned it, because the moment from the ballroom had already settled the hierarchy. Nathan didn't sit. He didn't need to. Victoria stood across from him. Her composure was still intact, but it was thinner now, fragile. It's like something held together by force rather than belief. Judith sat beside her, silent for once. Logan stood slightly behind them, no longer close, no longer confident. Distance had already started to form. "Let's begin with a financial review," Charles said. The first document appeared on the screen. Condensed, clear, irrefutable, transaction trails, transfers, account links. Nathan didn't speak. He didn't need to explain any of it. The numbers did it for him. Funds redirected from Sterling Premier Events accounts. Payments tied to Mercer Strategic Consulting. Personal expenses layered through shell invoices. The structure wasn't complicated, just hidden well enough to pass at a glance. Until someone looked closely. Victoria's jaw tightened. "That's not illegal," she said quickly. "Consulting payments they are," Charles interrupted calmly, "when they are used to mask personal transfers and violate fiduciary obligations." Silence followed. Logan stepped forward slightly. "This is being misinterpreted," he said. "Those were strategic allocations." "Victoria approved under mispronounciation," Charles replied. Logan stopped, because he knew what came next. The second document. A signature. Nathan's name attached to the loan, projected on the screen. "Forgery?" Charles asked, not as a question, but as confirmation. Victoria looked at Nathan, for the first time not with dismissal, but with uncertainty. She started. "We discussed that loan." "No," Nathan said quietly. It wasn't loud, but it stopped everything. "We didn't," he continued, no anger in his voice. No raised tone, just truth, the kind that didn't need emphasis. Victoria's breath caught slightly. Logan moved again, faster this time. "She knew what she was doing," he said, pointing toward Victoria. "She handled the paperwork. I was brought in after." The shift was immediate, sharp, ugly. Victoria turned toward him. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice breaking. Logan didn't look at her. "I advised," he said. "That's it. I don't control internal authorizations." The room didn't react, but the distance widened. Between them, between everyone. Judith leaned forward suddenly. "This is being blown out of proportion," she said. "These are business decisions. Aggressive, maybe, but not." Charles pressed a button. A new file opens. Printed, time-stamped, clear. Judith's name appeared more than once. Guidance, encouragement. Phrases about securing control and moving quickly before scrutiny. Judith stopped speaking, because there was nothing left to say. Nathan finally moved, just one step forward, not toward them, but toward the table. He placed his hand lightly against the surface. Grounded, controlled. "This doesn't need to become something bigger," he said. Everyone looked at him. Even now, even after everything, he wasn't raising his voice, he wasn't attacking, he was setting a boundary. "The company will be restructured," Nathan continued. "Employee contracts will be protected. Ongoing projects will continue under new oversight." He paused, then looked directly at Victoria. "You'll step down," he said. "Not as punishment, as consequence." Victoria stared at him. "You're destroying everything I built," she said. Nathan didn't flinch. "No," he said. "I'm separating what was built from how it was handled." The difference hung in the air, heavy, clear. Logan said nothing. Judith looked away, because for the first time, control wasn't something they could argue into existence. It was gone. The legal process moved quickly after that. Not instantly, not magically held. The documentation held. The trust protected the house. The loan dispute advanced. Victoria's legal team negotiated carefully, because they had no leverage left. The divorce finalized weeks later. Clean, final. No dramatic courtroom. No spectacle, just signatures and silence. Victoria saw him one last time outside the office building where the final documents were exchanged. She hesitated before speaking. "I didn't know," she said. Nathan looked at her. Not cold, not angry. Just distant. "I know," he replied. She swallowed. "If I had," he shook his head once, stopping her. "Because that sentence didn't matter anymore. You made your decisions with the information you chose to believe," he said. "It wasn't cruel, it was honest, and that was worse." Victoria looked at him like she wanted to say more, but there was nothing left that could change the outcome. Not anymore. Nathan walked away first. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Months later, the changes inside Blackstone Meridian Holdings were visible. Leadership adjusted, oversight tightened, not aggressive, not punitive, just precise. Nathan didn't stay in the spotlight, he never had. Instead, he shifted his focus, quietly, back to something that mattered before any of this began. Integrity Recovery Foundation launched without a press campaign, no announcement tied to his name, just work, real work, housing support, financial recovery programs, resources for people who had been pushed out of systems they didn't fully understand. People like the version of him the world thought they saw. He visited sites often, not as chairman, not as heir, just as someone who understood what it meant to be underestimated. One evening, standing outside a completed housing project, Nathan watched as contractors finished the last details. No cameras, no audience, just quiet progress. Mark stood beside him. "You ever think about how different things could gone?" he asked. Nathan considered it, then shook his head slightly. Not really, because the answer wasn't in what could have been. It was in what had already been revealed, not the money, not the title, the people, their choices, their assumptions. Nathan looked out across the building, then spoke, almost to himself. People reveal who they are when they think you have nothing. Mark didn't respond. He didn't need to, because some truths didn't require agreement, just recognition. Nathan took one last look at the site, then turned to leave. Not carrying the past with him, not chasing anything back, just moving forward onto his own terms. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who understands what respect really costs.